Ladies and gentlemen, here's how to unlock the final Dark Aether Rift and do the Season 5 Reloaded brand new Easter egg completely solo. I'm going to show you how to do this from start to finish, totally by yourself. You can obviously do this with teammates as well, but for those of you solo players out there looking for a proper guide, then this is the one for you. In order to unlock the final Dark Aether Rift and get access to unlock the new schematics, you're going to have to get 4 separate items that all need to be upgraded. And the way you get your first item is by completing the brand new story mission called Ascension. This is the rift and where it's located, and you're gonna just go up to this rift, activate it, and then play this mission. Now, I will say, this is very different to all of the other Dark Aether missions we've played so far, and here's what I'm gonna recommend. You know, typically when I talk about meta weapons in zombies, they end up being a lot of dual-wield weapons that are really good up close. However, I'm not gonna recommend that for this Dark Aether Rift story mission. I'm gonna recommend you bring in something like a really accurate AR, so like an MCW or something like that is what I ended up using to beat this. I brought dual-wield weapons in my first try and completely regretted it. Also, I really like the Wonderwaff, however, that's not going to be really good for the story mission either. So I would bring in something like a ray gun and maybe an accurate rifle, something like that. And once you're inside of this mission, you have a couple objectives. You're going to go to these 2 different pillars in the sky, and there's going to be 4 relics surrounding each one. You're going to grab the relics, activate the statue, and then kill zombies around it with Dr. Jensen. You can do this in any order. There's only 2 of them, and what you're going to notice is around the level design of this map, there are these red crystals. You could actually shoot these to destroy them, and then as you run over top of them, it'll act like a launch pad and send you somewhere else. You can use these to kind of jump and parkour around the map because it's very vertical. But basically, you're going to get around, complete these 2 rituals, and collect all of the relics. Once these 2 statues are done, you're actually going to jump and do a little bit of platforming on these trains because you're going to need to ascend the tower. There are so many different crystals and rifts around the map that will allow you to keep ascending. Your job is just to basically get to the top of this tower. You can do that by jumping onto the trains, using the launch pads, and there's a pretty direct path to get there. You shouldn't have too much trouble figuring this out. Once you get to the end of the path, you're going to go through this green rift, and then eventually you're going to end up in a boss fight arena. Now, this is a pretty tough one, and if you're playing this solo, I am going to recommend you have some kind of really accurate weapon because you're going to need it. Now, in addition to your accurate weapon, I'm also going to recommend that you have a handful of self-revives. You'll probably feel a lot safer with them. I'm going to recommend like 2 or 3, maybe even 4 to stock up on, just in case you're not really too confident about this. But once I got the hang of this, you know, I didn't end up going down at all, and you probably won't need the self-revives if you follow exactly what I'm doing here. But basically, when you get into this boss fight, you're going to be fighting this giant entity, and the way this works is she has these orbs that are vulnerable and can be shot that deal damage to her. Now, the thing is, she has a lot of very powerful attacks, and if you do not break all of the orbs before, you know, it winds up, you can definitely get basically insta-killed if you have no armor. I'm also going to strongly advise that you have a golden armor plate for this if you're doing it solo. Otherwise, it's going to be nearly impossible. There are a handful of ammo boxes around the map, too, that are going to be relatively useful. You're going to have to jump between islands. I also wouldn't worry too much about falling off the island because it will just teleport you back in the air and you can kind of land once again. And this boss fight is 2 phases, so be careful. She gets more powerful and more devastating attacks in phase 2, so it can be relatively tricky. One thing I'm going to advise you be very careful about in this boss fight is particularly these shoulder hitboxes. They seem to be very finicky. I couldn't get these to hit properly in my games very accurately. It's like this one specifically on the right and left are very difficult to hit, and so you may not be able to stop her from doing some of her like devastating wipe attacks. Those I hope like get fixed, but I think the hitboxes on that are kind of janky. I don't love them, but assuming you defeat this boss, you are going to be given a gold Mr. Peaks, and this is the first of 4 items that we need in order to actually permanently unlock the Dark Aether Rift. But the completion of the story mission is first and foremost what you should do, and you cannot do anything else until you beat this mission, so make that your priority. But once you've completed the story mission, you have Mr. Peaks. That's our first out of 4 items, and let's talk about how to get the other 3. Now, to get our first and easiest item, in my opinion, is actually going to be this cup, and the way that you acquire this is you're going to need a blood burner. Now, you can use this if you just happen to find a blood burner in the world. Now, that's going to be significantly more rare than if you just have blood burner keys, and assuming you do, we're going to take our blood burner keys, bring this into the normal map, and then we're going to head to this area inside of the tier 3 zone, and you're going to notice that there's a Mr. Peaks kind of sitting on this ledge. What we're going to do is drive down this path into the water. There are actually arrows directing you on where you should go, and it's a pretty simple route. As soon as you get to this part of the bridge, you just just drive up the hill and then back onto the normal part of the land, follow the path straight down, and then once you touch this barrel, your reward rift should spawn, and this will be the purple version of the cup. Obviously, the purple ones are unupgraded, but once you have the cup secured, you can actually take this over to the Opera House section of the map. You're going to need probably a vehicle or some other way. Maybe you can parachute up there, but you're going to need to get on top of this monument, and you can hear like the original 115 meteorite sound effect that you can sacrifice your attuned relic to. Luckily, this is pretty easy. You can just basically spawn all of these zombies in, and you're going to notice that there are a couple elemental zombies that just need to be killed with their corresponding element that you can find on the pillar. This is very simple to do, and honestly, you can take your time on this. This doesn't seem to be timed or rushed at all. This is a very easy one. You just kill 4 zombies with their respective elements, and you should be quick and clean, good to go. And after completing that, you'll be given your upgraded version of the cup. So that is item number 2 done. For our third item, we're going to be looking for a giraffe, and this one is also pretty straightforward to get as well. However, in order to acquire it, you're going to need the Sergeant's Beret. You're going to activate this item, which will cause the mercs to ignore you, and you can walk into a merc camp, and you're going to need to go up to any NPC behind them, and you're going to need to perform an execution by holding your melee button. You need to be directly behind them and hold your melee while they're completely still. You should perform an execution, and as soon as you've done that, right when the animation of the execution ends, the reward rift should spawn having a giraffe in it. Obviously, it's going to be purple, but now we can go ahead and upgrade this one as well. This one is probably the most fun. However, I am going to recommend that you're relatively prepared for this, just because if you're doing this solo, there is a high chance you may go down. Make sure you have all of your perks, and a handful of self-revives might not hurt. But we're going to head to this section inside of the tier 3 zone, and in this white van is going to be yet another meteorite sounding thing that you can attune your relic for. And once you do this, you're going to need to fight 3 different waves of HVTs, but they're all kind of unique. Now, you're going to fight a Mega Abomination, which is incredibly beefy. He's going to have a lot of health. Take your time on this thing, don't rush it. However, phase 2 is going to be an EMP Mimic. This is really difficult because he can actually shock you and prevent you from healing or restoring armor. These are very dangerous, and don't take them lightly. Be super careful about these. After that, you're going to get an actually very beefy disciple that can only be damaged after defeating his minions. So you're going to need to kill all the zombies, all the mimics, and another Mega Abomination most likely, and then you can finally break his armor and then kill the guy himself. But you should be able to do all of this on your own. It's going to take you a little while, and this is probably the most dangerous upgrade process to do by yourself, so just be careful on this one. But assuming you pass all of these stages, the reward rift will spawn again, and this will be your upgraded giraffe. Now we have one final one to go, and this is probably the most finicky or inconsistent and tricky one. This is obtaining the diary. Now, in order to do this, you're gonna need an ether blade. And once you have this ether blade, the easiest way I found to do this was start the game immediately and head to this like bridge. There's going to be a triangle in the water that can be activated by meleeing these 3 different sigils. They're very loud, you can hear them. All you need to do is melee to activate them, and then once they're all turned on, you can look at it at a certain angle. The triangle will go green, and it will activate a ton of mimic spawns, like literally a ton of them. Obviously, doing this solo, you need to be kind of careful, but what you need to do is just throw your ether blade at mimics until they die. You don't want to damage them with anything else, and this is kind of what I ended up doing, is just strafe back and forth. They're all going to pile up at the end of the dock, and then keep throwing your ether blade until you get a quote from Ravenov and a reward rift spawns. And you should know that drop the diary because they'll be talking about it. And I should mention, if this is giving you trouble or not working for you, apparently you just need to kill 5 regular mimics with an ether blade. That's it. So you can find them in the world design, you can find them at exfil sites, whatever it is. You just need to kill 5 mimics off straight ether blade damage, which might take a little while, but it's definitely doable. I found that this is the most consistent way to do it for me, but the diary can be a bit finicky, but try it both different ways and see what works for you. Once that appears, you can leave this section. You don't need to kill the rest of these. Just grab that diary and get the hell out. And then right when you've done that and you have the diary, we're going to head over to this eagle section all the way in the top left corner of the map, and then we're going to jump up here, activate the attuned relic, and then go through this yellow rift portal. This is going to put you on top of the nuclear power station, and then once you're on the silo, what you need to do is PhD flopper off of this building, and you want to land on this crate that has the eagle on it. It's a pretty generous hitbox. You don't need to land directly on top of it. I kind of landed on the side and it still worked, but you're going to need to to, you know, make sure you grab your PhD flopper and then jump off the silo, land perfectly on the thing, and then it should give you your upgraded diary. Once you've acquired the upgraded diary, that should be all 4 attuned relics. You'll have the Mr. Peaks, the cup, the diary, and the giraffe. And then once we have all 4 of those items, we can go back into another game and then activate them inside of the rift itself. This is in the center of the tier 3 zone, and once you're in this fountain, zombies actually won't come in here and hurt you. However, they can still throw like the meat at you, which will, you know, obviously be very dangerous still. So you can't just completely stand still. You need to be a bit mindful, but you need to place each individual item on the correct pedestal. It's labeled, there's an icon on it. It shouldn't be confusing at all. You just place all 4, and then once you've done that, a mega abomination will spawn. If you're doing this solo, before you do this step, I recommend you get a juggernaut suit and call it in right as the mega bomb is spawning. You can just grab this and then wipe him out, and then once you've killed that mega abomination and that dark ether portal spawns in, you'll also be given a sigil once you eliminate him, meaning you can access the easier version of the Dark Aether Rift. But then at this point, you have it permanently unlocked, and you can either go in with a normal sigil or with an elder sigil to unlock these schematics. And now you have the Dark Aether Rift to your heart's content. You can use it whenever you want to go get all of the brand new final schematics for MWZ. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you're looking forward to Black Ops 6 content, make sure to subscribe here. I would really appreciate it, and plenty more guides coming like this for BO6. I've got y'all covered. So anyways, thank y'all for watching once again. I very much do appreciate your time, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.